Hello, and welcome to this video presentation of International Studies at Roskilde University. My name is Michael Kluth, and I'm attached to the Department of Social Sciences and Business, which is also offering this program. I'm a political scientist, and I mainly work with international security issues within international relations. And I've put a list here of some of my more recent publications just to illustrate the type of interests that I'm having. But of course, this presentation is not about me nor my research, but it does serve a point which I will return to later. International studies has been running for a couple of years at Roskilde University. Actually, more than that, we are getting close to 7 or 8 years. And the aim of the program is to study political, economic, and sociological aspects of global and European development, cooperation, and conflict. This means, of course, that the program is inherently interdisciplinary, combining both insights from economics, that is, political economy, sociology, in the guise of global sociology, and political science, emphasizing, of course, the sub-discipline of political science, which is international politics, although we also employ comparative politics and work with comparative sociology and political economy, of course. Um, in the bachelor program that we offer, we endeavor to utilize central theories and methods. There will also be times when we engage with more sort of cutting edge, state of the art stuff. Some of it, for example, in the more sort of critical variety within post-structuralism, etc., etc. But mainly, this program aims at giving you a solid foundation in the various approaches to international studies, and there will then be an opportunity for you to explore some of the more elaborate critical versions when you later on pursue your master. That is, if you decide to do it here at Roskilde. So, international studies, of course, approach all types of major issues in the domain. Uh, Cases in point could be what happens to the dynamics and the character of conflict and security rivalry when we see the rise of new powers, notably, for example, China. How does that affect the collaboration in international bodies? How does it impact regional conflicts? And how may it even either contribute to or upset patterns of collaboration even in non-security domains? China's rise, of course, although China is by no means the only relevant rising power, but China's rise, of course, has been greatly assisted by international trade, which is another area that we are very much engaged with. And international trade, of course, is an area which has kind of taken a turn the last 4 or 5 years. Uh, in 2015, we would probably work from the assumption that international trade would remain a driver of globalization for many years to come. Now that doesn't seem all that certain because we are encountering clear signs of both regional and global disintegration, which is very much impacting trade. But at the regional level, of course, this is paramount in relation to the ongoing Brexit saga, which is a case of European disintegration, something which we probably didn't quite anticipate only 5 years ago. But it has its parallel and corresponding dynamics in the realm of global trade, where the US, of course, has instigated trade wars with China, but also other players, including their close European allies. Why is that? Well, some would probably attribute it to the rise of new powers, but there's certainly other explanations around. One of them is that we seem to be witnessing a nationalist backlash in many countries, which is fueling the rise of populist nationalist leaders. Of course, this is being contested. It is not something which is happening unopposed, and this is another area where we see a lot of interest and a lot of research activity within international studies. The whole drive behind this nationalist backlash and the various counter strategies that are being devised by opponents to this development. One area where this sort of battle is raging is in relation to social media, which of course is a platform which is available, it would seem, on equal terms to all the contestants in this realm. But on the other hand, it's also dominated by some very big technology companies who may have their own agendas and who may actually skew or bias outcomes due to how they use various algorithms, etc., etc. So this is another area that has great interest among the faculty and the students at international studies. Of course, all of this would seem to be upsetting a drive towards creating a rule-based world which pursues justice. And international justice and international law is certainly another aspect of international studies which is very much being highlighted these days. What we saw 20 years ago would be the creation of the International Criminal Court and an increasingly rule-based international order. Now we see the opposite. States are walking out on previous commitments. They are abandoning organizations. And it's not just the US throwing around its weight in international politics, it's also other players. Most of the countries, for example, which have walked out of the International Criminal Court would come from the African continent. So there's a very mixed and complicated picture here. But of course, one could tie all these issues together in numerous ways, but they certainly all represent areas where we see a keen engagement in the domain of international studies. So this is, of course, reflected in the project. You might have a hard time reading my slides here, and do not despair. I will somehow find a way to upload them so you can look at them at your own pace and hopefully at a higher resolution than I can offer here in my home studio. But here we have some examples of projects that has been written at international studies in the past couple of years. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, a fair amount of them would look at various instances of conflict, be they regional, between Syria and Iraq, or between the West and Russia, and accordingly, perhaps with sort of a stronger sort of global implication. But we also look at conflicts within states, such as the ethnic tensions in Bosnia-Herzegovina and the various issues in relation to, for example, Israeli settlements in the West Bank. But we also have a lot of projects looking at collaboration. For example, energy and development in the global south. How is that being carried out in a way where global south players are tying up and engaging with another? The role of the UN in this ongoing changing global order. The Arctic Council, another area where Denmark actually has a stake, would also be examples of development. But we also look at more sort of sociological type of issues, such as how could we employ a feminist perspective on women in development? and what are the social and environmental consequences of a particular sector, such as the palm oil industry in Indonesia, etc., etc. Not, of course, to mention the sadly forgotten tragedy of migration and human smuggling in the Mediterranean region, which has been sort of overshadowed by the ongoing corona crisis, but sadly it is still being played out and at huge human cost. So that would be some of the sort of broader issues we engage with. Now I will turn my attention to the actual content of the program. It's important to point out first that we offer two programs, sort of, in the sense that we have a single subject bachelor where you can sort of spend your remaining time as a bachelor student solely doing international study, which will earn you an international recognized bachelor degree in international studies. This, of course, is only an option for students who have a social science basic studies sort of entry. You can't do it if you hail from the humanities or the natural sciences. But this is the one option you face. And if you do that, of course, you will get more courses and do more projects than if you do a combination. And let me just say a few words about the different elements of the single subject Bachelor in International Studies. For a start, we have 4 compulsory courses. The first is in international politics. It's very theory-centric. It's an endeavor to sort of introduce you to the key schools of thought theoretically in international politics. The second course is international political economy. And perhaps it would be wise with just a tiny warning. When I speak of, or when we speak of political economy, we want to emphasize the central role of power in all sort of allocational processes. Accordingly, there is a strong emphasis on the struggles in relation to this exercising of power in an allocational context. And as a consequence, the way we teach it here and the way the research is conducted is probably a bit to the verbal side. So you won't find much in the way of mathematical refinement in the way we teach international political economy. However, if mathematics is your thing, if this is what you want to do, you can pursue it in your projects. So it will not really come across in the course, but if you really want to employ advanced econometrical models, you can do it in your project, and we can certainly supply a supervisor that will match your desires, because we do have people who, of course, work in this realm. The other 2 compulsory courses are about the European Union, how it works, the institutions, the dynamics, and then, of course, global sociology, which would relate to issues such as identity politics, ethnicity and politics, even race and class, etc., and how that transpires in the global realm. So that would be the 4 compulsory courses. In addition, you can take 2 elective courses, and you can choose between a total of 6 courses where you can take 2. And the courses you can choose from would be EU as a global actor, political economy of development, or international institutions and governance. In addition, you can choose between international law, culture, power, society and development, or war, peace and insecurity. Moreover, you will of course be doing two projects where you can draw on the courses and incorporate some of the insights you have attained and employ the theories, for example, from international politics to a particular area of your liking. And the same, of course, would be possible if you are interested in identity politics or the wider issues of power and economics and distribution and allocation. Finally, you will be doing two methods course. One is called Advanced Social Science Methodology, and the other one is called Social Science Analysis Strategy. If, however, you would like to combine with another subject, you can take international studies as a combination subject. If you do so, you will only be required to do two of the four mandatory courses, and that would be international politics and international political economy. In addition, you can do one additional course. And this course you can choose from the list of the 8 other courses we offered, which I just went over during the previous slide. So that would be EU institutions or global sociology or whatever. You can take one of these in addition to the 2 mandatory courses. And of course, you will be doing one project rather than 2, and you will do only one of the methods courses. Now, the study environment. I think one of the differences from what you have encountered so far is that at international studies, all the lecturers and all the supervisors are active researchers. And that gets me back to the title slide. Everyone you will encounter have an ongoing production of research, which is published in recognized outlets such as leading international journals, etc., etc. Of course, many of the teachers and supervisors you have had so far would share the same feature. But on top of that, in the first couple of semesters at Roskilde, you will also come across people who have their main employment elsewhere and do this as a part-time thing, and they may not be active researchers. And some of them actually have as one of their key and very cherished competences that they are particularly good at helping you to sort of make the transition from high school to university. At international studies, this transition has hopefully been completed, and now you will be thrown into the arms of people who are first and foremost researchers, but with a passion for teaching. And that very much permeates the environment at international studies. We try, of course, not to overwhelm you because a lot of these people have their hobby horses, except that they do it for a living, so it's not really a hobby. And sometimes get very much absorbed in their own area. And if we then make courses where we sort of put them together by different contributors, it might take you in all sorts of direction. We're very aware of that, and therefore the courses that we offer have a maximum of 4, and there's really only one course that I'm aware of where we have 4 different lecturers, and they are very much aware of what their colleagues are doing. But most of the courses are offered by 2 lectures in order to ensure coherence. We also link the projects to the courses, and that ensures, of course, that the supervisors know what you have been through, and therefore the conversation can sort of start at a fairly advanced level during supervision. On top of that, we like to think that we take student feedback very serious and quite often adapt courses on the basis of midterm feedback. Moreover, at international studies, we have a very active network of students, and they participate, of course, in the study board and organize all sorts of interesting events. And on top of that, we have 5 big research groups consisting of faculty staff, who of course often would invite scholars from overseas or practitioners within the area to give presentations and lectures and seminars. And most of the time, students are invited to join us for those events. If you decide to do this as a combination, you can of course combine with a number of other subjects. The list does change on a regular basis, so I hope you know where to find the updated version at the Roskilde website. But you can certainly combine with the following subjects, which would be business studies, communication studies, cultural encounters, geography, history, journalism in Danish, communication, and cultural encounters in Danish as well as byplan og proces, social psychology of everyday life, sundhedsfremme og sundhedsstrategier, and tech sammen. So, but be mindful that you need to check up on this, and this is sort of one area where you can make good use of the student hub and the student counselors. Now, international studies is a bachelor program, so I'm not going to give you a presentation of the fabulous career opportunities that await you afterwards, because it's highly dependent on the master program you do afterwards. That is pretty much just how things are in this part of the world. If you decide that you want to pursue your masters at Roskilde, you have some very interesting options, all offered by the Department of Social Sciences and Business. For a start, you can sort of do an international version of public administration. We call the program International Politics and Public Policy, short form, IPAP. And this program is a full master, and it takes aim at getting graduates into the European Union, the OECD, or various professional associations, which could be business associations or associations for organized labor or municipalities and whatever. And of course, this program in particular would take aim at the international work of these associations. You can also do global studies, a master program we offer both as a full degree and as a combination program. And if you do so, we would imagine that you would be interested in pursuing a career in diplomacy. This program was designed with sort of explicit endorsement from the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But you may also take up employment in the United Nations or in perhaps slightly more activist non-government organizations than the professional associations you find up here in relation to IPAP. Interestingly, we have an international version of global studies. Sounds a bit odd perhaps, because it would appear to be inherently international, but we have an Erasmus Mundus program that we offer together with the universities of Leipzig, Vienna, Ghent in Belgium, Wrocław, formerly known as Breslau in Poland, and London School of Economics. And that, of course, will take aim at pretty much the same labor market as our own global studies, but perhaps there is sort of a stronger orientation towards activist NGOs. You will, of course, don't have automatic access to this, but usually our international studies applicants have been quite successful in getting into this program, where we also have a lot of overseas exchange partners, by the way, all over the world. You can also do international development studies, which is sort of the oldest program of its kind in Denmark and possibly Scandinavia, and certainly it's the oldest of the international social science programs at Roskilde University. And if this is your thing, we would expect you to find employment in overseas development agencies, the United Nations, development associations, action aid, etc., and even development consultancies. So that's sort of a slightly different direction, although, of course, your employment prospects, the employment prospects of graduates across these programs tend to be somewhat overlapping. We have people here ending up in diplomacy, and we have people here ending up being, activist type of NGO employees. Now, had it not been for this situation, this would have been an opportunity for you to pose questions and me to answer them, but that can't be done right here. But we have arranged a webinar on Wednesday, April the 15th at 1500 hours. You should be able to find the link on the Fagvalgsdag website, and hopefully you can join me there, and then you're welcome to ask questions. In addition, the current head of studies of the program is my colleague Klaus Dykman, and you can always make inquiries with him should you have anything you would like to raise, perhaps of a more technical nature in relation to the program. But thank you for listening, and hope to see you on Wednesday.